If you're looking for a deeper connection with your children, students, and preschool families, then perhaps you need to come together through stories. Join me today as we learn from one of the greatest storytellers in the preschool world. Welcome back to the Preschool All-Stars podcast. I'm your host, Joy Anderson, and with me today is my good friend, Teacher Tom. For the greater part of the past 2 decades, he has been the sole employee of the Woodland Park Cooperative Preschool. And since 2009, he's been writing on his blog daily, Teacher Tom's blog, about his experiences as a preschool teacher and also the learning that he's gained through the entire experience, truly reflecting on his teaching. So, Tom, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Joy. It's great to be here.
Could you share with our listeners where this journey started from?
Oh, yeah. Well, I had absolutely no intention of being a teacher. You know, I was in an unusual situation 20 some odd years ago, 24 years ago, I guess, in the sense that when our daughter was born, we got around to the point where, you know, my wife had a great job and was earning the money. And we were in a position where I got to be a stay-at-home dad. And which was pretty unusual at the time. I think it's still fairly unusual, but I was able to be there with my little girl growing up. And as she got to be around, she wasn't even 2 yet. Because my instinct, I'm essentially an introverted. I know, and I know it doesn't come off in these circumstances. I'm a high functioning introvert, I guess. And so my instinct would be to kind of, do real homeschooling, stay home, and kind of putter around the house all day. But before she was even 2, she started saying things to me like, "Papa, let's go somewhere. Let's do something." And so I started thinking, all right, well, maybe that means she's asking for preschool. And I floated this idea with my wife, and she said, "Well, come on, what are you sending her to school for? She's got a stay-at-home parent." And so then I just ran it by my mother, and my mother said the exact same thing. And then I tried to go over their heads to my mother-in-law, and she said the same thing. And so I was shut out. It was sort of like, no, there's no school for a kid this age, especially with a stay-at-home parent. And so, so we would just try to cobble together a social life, go into parks and playgrounds and things like that. And we took a couple of little jamboree classes together and started meeting a few other people. And at one point I was probably telling this exact same story to somebody at a playground. And she said, "Well, my kid goes to a cooperative preschool 3 days a week where I get to go to school with him, where the parents go to school with their children." And so, I found out about that, and I ran that one by the 3 important women in my life, and they all said, "Go for it, as long as you go with her." So I started going to school. We were going 2 days a week to this cooperative school where I worked in the classroom, and I was, and kind of when she got to be, old enough to head off to kindergarten, her teacher asked me, she said, "What, Tom, what are you going to do now that you're not coming to school every day and participating in class?" And I had not given it a lick of thought. And I'd been a writer up until then, a freelance writer. And the idea of just going and sitting at my desk, staring at a computer and just being alone all day just sounded, that had been blown up for me. I couldn't do that anymore. And she said, "Well, if you don't know, I think you'd make a great teacher." And so I started doing coursework. And before I was even done with my coursework, I worked with Tom Drummond at North Seattle College and some other really great educators. Before I was even done with that work, I'd been hired at Woodland Park, and I was there for a better part of 20 years.
I love that story. That is so, she went off to kindergarten and you stayed.
Well, that's kind of how it is. I mean, that's how I often tell the story. I'm at a different school than she was. I taught at a different school, but
yeah.
I suddenly realized, well, this is where I should be. And I have often said that I think if my father spent time with their preschoolers like this, I think the whole world of ECE would be taken over by men because it's so much fun.
I love that. So with the cooperative preschool, some of our moms are probably a little bit unknown to it. So tell us really quickly what a cooperative school is.
Well, cooperative preschool, or a cooperative school in general, is a school that is owned and operated by the parents who enroll their children. And so I'm the only paid employee. The teacher's the only one you pay. Everything else that goes into making a school operated is done by a parent. So there'll be a parent who's in charge of scheduling and coordination. Somebody's the administrator, somebody's in charge of bookkeeping, somebody's in charge of janitorial work and maintenance and gardening and all the things that go into a school. And so in a very real sense, and then these parents are legally the owners of the school. So they are a decision-making body that makes decisions about hiring and firing me, for example, but also about all the things that go into making a school operate. And on top of that, they come to school. They owe me as the teacher 1 day a week, an adult from their family to come work in the classroom with me as an assistant teacher. And so, what I always say is that, every preschool environment becomes a community of children. But in a very real sense, a cooperative school becomes a community of families, because the families get to have that intimate knowledge of not only one another, but one another's children, and working and creating this, creating a community for their children to live in that includes not just the kids, but the older siblings, the grandparents. And I really do believe that's the natural way for children to grow up, is with that bigger community, that village. Like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. And so to me, cooperative is one of the ways to create that village.
That's perfect. Over in the Pacific Northwest, you have a lot of rainy days, though, right?
Yeah.
So there are so many things that I've seen through your blog of you coming outside with your students. What are some of your favorite things you love to do in the rain? Even like bringing everybody outside.
Well, first of all, we do anything we can do when there's not rain, we do when there is rain. So that's it. Because in the Pacific Northwest, seriously, in Seattle, I think we get an average of 180 days a year with some rain, and about 200, well over 200 days where it's overcast. And so if we don't go outside and play, and this is usually the summer is the month of maybe like July, and then smoke season starts in August. But so that we really have a short summer, but we have to, if we're going to be outside, we have to play in the rain. So, the things we do, I mean, there's certain things that are even better. I used to say to the kids, they would say something about it's raining. I'd say, well, there's an atmospheric river flowing over us, and we're playing in the river. So it became that kind of concept. And so the kids would have to have good rain gear. That's one of the key things is, there's no bad weather, just bad clothing. And so we would, those full body rain suits were big, but also the high boots that go up at least to the knee are really important to have. And then you can do anything in the rain that you can do when it's not raining. In fact, there's some things that you can only do in the rain, like rain painting.
There you go.
And this is what we would do is we would take, and we had this little covered area where we had some tables, and the kids would paint watercolors, paint whatever they wanted to paint. And then there'd be another table out in the drizzle, and they put their painting out in the drizzle, and then you watch it. And the rain would start dancing on your paper and spreading out the paint and changing it, and eventually wash it completely clean. And then you could take that same piece of paper back in, and then you have a wet water wash, and you could paint on that. So that's an example of things you can do, only can do in the rain. Playing with clay in the rain is a lot of fun, because clay is really nice when it gets wet. So it gets really slimy and smooth, and and it's a mess, but we're already out playing in the rain. And we're and getting, being outside. That's part of the reason I think, the research tells us children really to develop normally should be outdoors somewhere like 3 to 4 hours a day minimum. And not many kids are getting that in America. And I get it. I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to make yourself get outside, especially in the middle of winter, especially in one of the northern tier states, or, midsummer in South Texas is not the best place to be outside. But getting outside is one of those things where it's one of the reasons it's good for kids. I mean, there's the health, the fresh air, is that adults relax when kids are playing outside. We have a tendency to not worry about things getting broken. We have a tendency to not worry about things getting messy. And so we just kind of relax and step back, and they get more space to explore on their own outside. And that's on us, because we don't do it indoors. But I've got tchotchkes inside I don't want broken. There's much better things to do outside.
Your description of that clay. I mean, every mother out there is envisioning this wet clay and it being transferred to those jeans on the child.
Yep.
But they're in the rain. They're washing away.
If it's on the rain clothes, you just hose them off. You just have a hose right there, and you spray them down, or kind of a wet towel, and you just wipe it all off of them. And clay's natural, so it's okay if it gets in your soil a little bit, or on the ground, or on the pavement, or whatever.
Yeah.
So for me, there's no excuses to stay indoors unless it's bitter cold sometimes, and if it's extreme heat. But other than that, we're outside all the time.
That's amazing. 3 to 4 hours, get your kiddos outside, enjoy this beautiful sun. There's always sun well, a little bit cloudy over where you're at.
Yeah, no, it's so it's it,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is that, here it also gets dark by 4 o'clock in the middle of winter. And so, parents and families don't tend to then go outside after school because they get home from work or whatever, and it's already dark. And when they go to school, it's already dark. So the daylight hours are right there in the middle of the day. So if they're not doing it at school, where else are they going to do it? And so
Absolutely.
I really urge everybody to find ways to be outside as much as possible. It's the healthiest place for kids to be.
I love that. Now, you've traveled the world with many adventures. Is there a time, there's many times, I'm sure, but is there a time you can think back to when I remember this one time playing with these one kids in this one country? Is there any time that you can reflect back on and share a story about, not many of us go abroad. So
Yeah.
it's so great to get stories from other countries.
Well, one of my favorite times playing with, this was this kind of story. I went to, this was 7 or 8 years ago. I was in Athens, Greece, to speak at a conference, and I was hosted by a school, which is called the Dorothy Snot School. And my dear friend, John Ioannidis, runs that school, and we've stayed friends for a long time. And, he explained to me, he said, well, I know in English it sounds kind of disgusting. He says, but Dorothy Snot is a very well-known storybook character. And it's traditional in Greece to name your preschools after storybook characters. So that's where they got that name from. And it's an incredible play-based school. So he invited me, and so I don't know if any of your listeners or watchers have seen a picture of me on the back of those books behind you. There's a picture of me, and I wear this cape, this red cape, and it's on my blog, and it's just sort of become my signature thing. And I had brought it with me in my luggage, thinking, well, because it's my signature, maybe I should have it with me. And the first day I went to that school, the kids, they were all speaking Greek. They didn't speak English. And it turned out that they didn't believe it was me because I didn't have the cape. And so the next day when I went to the school, I brought the cape. And again, I didn't speak the language. I had a couple of words, pleases and thank yous and stuff. But that cape, because we were playing with the fact I was wearing it, it drew their attention. Then as they took their turns wearing my cape, they began to play with it. And we began to create this relationship with one another, where finally we just laid out a big sheet of paper on the ground and drew pictures to each other to communicate, which I thought was a really brilliant way to overcome a language barrier. You wanted to talk about a bicycle, you had to draw the bicycle and the arrows and all this. And so that was really kind of a magical experience, being able to do that with young children. And another time was one of the teachers there, actually, I've been there a couple times now. She asked me to tell a story to the kids. I said, well, I don't speak Greek. She said, that's okay. We're going to do an exercise where you tell these 5-year-olds a story. And then afterwards, we're going to ask them what the story was about and see how much they got. And so I told this basic story, and it was, there was a lot of hand gestures and stuff. The way in preschool, you're going to tell stories and you have some repetition and some repeated kind of things. And so I told this story. And then afterwards, as she interviewed the children, they had it almost 100% nailed. They had understood that story. And for me, the great epiphany from that was that human beings, all of us, you and I, every human being, because of that great, vast hunter-gatherer past of human evolution, we are designed to learn through stories and storytelling. That's one of the reasons I focus on stories and storytelling in my book and on my blog, is that, they talk about all these different learning styles, and I learn better this way and that way. Everybody learns through stories, because we spent most of human existence gathering around those campfires, telling each other about our days. And this is how we got our information about the world, was telling stories to one another, both fictional and non-fictional, and sharing with one another, connecting with one another through those stories. And so for me, that was a moment when I thought to myself, well, the language didn't even matter as much as the process of telling a story with one another.
Stories, truly. And that's one of the things that I just remember so much about you, is I've been reading your blog, and you started that back in 2009, sharing your stories every single day with the experiences that you had. So you've created these amazing 2 books, Teacher Tom's first book and Teacher Tom's second book.
Guess what the next book's going to be called?
Yes. It will help because then you'll have a third and a fourth, and it'll be your wonderful series. So our listeners are, I'm sure, going to want to follow you. We've got your amazing 2 books they need to go grab. And of course, I heard that you have a course that you offer as well. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is actually, it's a new e-course. It's a 6-part course. It's called The Technology of Speaking with Children So They Can Think. And this is stuff I've been working on for the better part of the last 20 years. And this is material I've been researching it and putting it together. And I have found, people have told me, both teachers but particularly parents have told me this is transformative, because so much of the language we use with children actually prevents them from thinking for themselves. And this is a great way. There's a lot of cautions in it, but also gives you some technology about how to use your language to create an environment in which children will do their own thing. And so if anybody's interested in this and they want to take part in this, you can go to teachertomsworld.com and just click on the courses link at the top of the page, and you'll find it, The Technology of Speaking with Children So They Can Think.
That is perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. So everyone listening and watching, be sure to go get his books and participate in his course at teachertomsworld.com and click on the courses and also his books, and you can get in that way. And if for any reason if you're listening later and if it's closed, don't worry, there will be a wait list there, but I think we're going to have an opportunity to jump right in here. So be sure to go to that website so you can get right in. Well, thank you again, Tom, so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you, Joy. It's been a pleasure.
If you love today's episode, then you are going to love this. I want to give you a free gift in your hands. This is a copy of my book, Start Your Preschool, and I want to get it to you for free. Yes, I said for free. It is a 300-page book. It'll help you learn the step-by-step process to actually starting your local or your online preschool. Every single step that I walked myself through, as well as the thousands of women who've created their own successful preschools, have gone through the exact steps listed in this book. Not to mention, I also share 20 amazing women's stories. So you can see how not only did it work for me, but it works for amazing women just like you as well. I want to get you this free copy. Just go to freepreschoolbook.com or click the link in the description and we'll get it to you today. Again, just go to freepreschoolbook.com and we'll get it right to you.